Nearly 4.5 billion years ago, our planet was born. During the early years of Earth's life, the atmosphere consisted mostly of methane, carbon monoxide, and ammonia. Over millions of years, volcanic activity released oxygen-rich compounds such as sulfur dioxide and water vapor into the atmosphere and transformed the air into what we breathe today. Having an atmosphere is important to sustaining life. The story of life on Earth is an interesting one, but this story could come to an end if we don't treat our atmosphere right. Before I tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. The story of the French physicist and mathematician Joseph Fourier. In the early 19th century, Fourier calculated that the sun couldn't possibly heat an object the size of Earth at the distance it does through radiation alone. Fourier hypothesized that the Earth's atmosphere must act like some insulator or blanket of some sort. He referred to a solar cooker, a device that trapped the sun's heat and cooked food through convection. By trapping the heat with a glass lid, radiation energy could pass through, and the heat would stay trapped in the solar cooker. Fourier concluded that gases could form a barrier in the atmosphere, like a glass lid. His conclusion led to what we now call the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is strengthened when more gases are present, allowing less and less heat to escape, and more heat to build up.
Over the past 50 years, the global temperature has increased at the fastest rate in recorded history, and most of the hottest years have occurred since 2000. One of the main causes of global warming is the emissions of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases are gases, typically from fossil fuels, that are released into the atmosphere and take centuries to go away. These greenhouse gases cause a greenhouse effect, where heat from the sun gets trapped in the atmosphere, causing the Earth to slowly get warmer. Because of global warming, the threat of natural disasters increases. Since the Earth's ocean temperatures are getting warmer, tropical storms can pick up more energy. This means that it's easier for a Category 3 hurricane to turn into a Category 4, and so on. But it's not only tropical storms that are getting more dangerous. Hotter heat waves are causing terrible droughts and forest fires, which have been plaguing California recently. The rising temperature also intensifies the water cycle, causing there to be more violent storms, which cause massive floodings. The droughts and the floodings destroy many ecosystems as animals and plants thrive in the conditions they are used to. The natural disasters also make it harder to farm, which causes a shortage of food supply, which directly harms us. Ozone deterioration from greenhouse gases allows large amounts of ultraviolet B rays to reach Earth. This can cause skin cancer and cataracts in humans and harms animals as well. Extra ultraviolet B radiation reaching Earth also inhibits the reproductive cycle of phytoplankton. Biologists fear that the reductions in phytoplankton population will in turn lower the population of other animals. Researchers also have documented changes in the reproductive rates of young fish, shrimps, and crabs, as well as frogs and salamanders exposed to excess ultraviolet B. Many land, freshwater, and ocean species are shifting their geographic ranges to cooler climates or higher altitudes in an attempt to escape warming. They are changing seasonal behaviors and traditional migration patterns too, and yet many still face increased extinction risk due to climate change. The Earth's marine ecosystems are under pressure as a result of climate change. Oceans are becoming more acidic due in large part to their absorption of some of our excess emissions.
According to NASA, the polar ice caps are melting at an alarming rate of 9% per decade, losing about 3 times as much mass annually as they did before 1997. It's an effect that the scientists have called irreversible. Up to 30% of Greenland's coastal ice is expected to disappear by 2100. The thickness of the Arctic ice has decreased by 40% since the 1960s. According to scientists at the U.S. Center for Atmospheric Research, if the current rate of global temperature rise continues, the Arctic will be free of ice by 2040. As of 2015, acidification is believed to have cost the Pacific Northwest oyster industry nearly $110 million. Coastal communities in 15 states that depend on the 1 billion nationwide annual harvest of oysters, clams, and other shelled mollusks face similar long-term economic risks. Due to declining costs and improvements in renewable technologies, solar and wind projects are being built in more places around the globe more cheaply than any time in history. On top of that, the price of photovoltaic cells continues to drop. A recent survey found that 84% of Americans believe automakers should keep making cars and trucks more and more fuel efficient. We're also seeing incredible progress in energy storage. For example, a bill for California's energy storage mandate passed unanimously, and since then, the state has expanded the mandate to allow even more energy storage. Similar policies in Japan and Germany are spurring similar growth in energy storage overseas.
Oh, is it going? Yeah. Do you believe in climate change?
Yes, I do.
And what's your reasoning behind that decision?
Well, as the climate is getting warmer due to increased fossil fuels, it's no mistake that the fossil fuels we burn are clogging up our climate and creating and depleting the ozone layer.
What steps do you think should be taken to control how much we affect the environment?
The only steps now, as we're approaching a deadline to irreversible damage, is radical ideas of complete cutting of fossil fuels.
Do you believe in climate change?
I do, yeah.
What's the reasoning behind your decision?
Well, I believe in climate change because obviously, we're gonna lose on the beach. Water, comes in closer. I see it every year. Beach is definitely eroding, getting smaller, and the water level is just clearly and undeniably rising. And so are the temperatures around the world. But do I think that humans, have a gigantic part in changing it? No, not really, not necessarily, because there was an ice age, don't forget. And, I think that us, going to electric cars and drinking, paper straws just isn't going to change all that much about, how high the oceans are. It's just the way the world works.
What steps do you think should be taken to control how much we affect the environment?
I think I wouldn't change anything.
This brings us back to the story of humans and the Earth. There is no conclusion to our story, as the ending hasn't happened yet. Whether we get a happily ever after, or a tragic ending, is entirely up to us and our gas emissions. We aren't gonna get every human to cease factory production and stop driving motorized vehicles, but we need to create an awareness. Not just an awareness that's present for a few hours after watching a documentary, but a lifelong decision to help the atmosphere, the Earth, and the lives that live upon it.